subscribers, members, and everybody that's really been rocking with us and showing support. It really do start with y'all, man. But to give somewhat of a backstory, we've been doing this since 2021 on Rap News Street Politics, and RNSP is a two-man collective. It's me, of course, who y'all hear on all these videos, and it's my cousin who y'all see with the visuals doing all the video editing, making sure we gluing together everything we speaking about on this channel, man. But like I said, you guys that support us to this channel has really gotten this channel to where it's at right now, because y'all have really gave us the confirmation that we needed to say in the comment section, comment on YouTube, and we try to get to every different member sign through. We trying to get not necessarily public information, and we do have Easter eggs that only you guys will hear about with the police investigation report. So when the police hit the scene at these crime scenes, we do have the details that we don't release to the public. But like I said, with these being delicate reports, you know, there's some things that we kind of want to tweak with this series in private with you guys as our supporters. Number one, you know, it's going to be a little less reckless gangbanging with these reports and a little more compassion for these individuals that have lost their lives in this situation. You know, we definitely want to bring y'all a respectful account of how these individuals have lost their lives in the situations that transpire. But we also, of course, want to give you insight, game, details, whatever it is, we still want to supply that. Internal is son named Mashron Giovanni Latroy Browner Montgomery, aka kingBoy from Rolling 30 Harlem Crib. Now, one thing I also want to say is these individuals are real people, and their existence did go beyond the gangbanging. It does go beyond their hood name, their hood moniker. You know, there are families involved. Not everybody's a gang member all the time, man. That's some details that we do want to convey. I know in our public videos, it's fast-paced, it's cracking, it's active. But not only is this a time for us to give you guys something specifically, it's also a time for us to kind of pay respects and slowing down when talking about these individuals that have lost their lives, because every life means something out here. But like I said, with kingBoy being from Rolling 30s, just a backstory on the Harlems. The Rolling 30s exists in an area that is truly historical in the city. For everybody that's in LA, for the most part, everybody has been in this hood. They have a lot of monuments around them directly in their hood and right outside their hood, like bordering other hoods. Number one, places like West Angeles, you know, that's a huge church on 36 and Crenshaw. This is really the borderline between them, between Harlem, West Boulevard, BPS. Harlem really is a little bit further east from here, but West Angeles is still technically in Rolling 30 hood now. You know, like I said, if you from out here, everybody has been to that church, and it's definitely a staple of LA. Also, down the street from here, you have Angeles Funeral Home. Now, that is a staple funeral home on the west side of Los Angeles as well. It's on the west side of Crenshaw. Like I said, this is the borderline of BPS, West Boulevard. The 40s are not far from here, but on this side of the Harlem's hood, those two places right there, long-standing monumental buildings in this area. And like I said, those two places draw anybody to this area, especially West Angeles. On the east side of their hood, which is really closer to the Fruittown Brims, but still synonymous with the Harlems, you have USC and you have the Coliseum. So like I said, this is what makes this Rolling 30 hood historical. You know, it's not like the projects. It's not somewhere tucked off in the city. So this is where you somewhat get a fine mix of gang banging mixed with normal, regular life. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that other parts of the city like Compton and Watts don't have regular lives, but I spoke about the west side of South Central and West LA a lot. And sometimes, due to the proximity of better neighborhoods, some of these areas have better advantages for the people that are over here, you know. But this is the area kingBoy was from. And again, this is a 19-year-old young man who lost his life Memorial Day weekend. So the cause of death, the official cause of death of Mashron, was a gunshot wound to the head. And in the report, it states that they found a circular defect on the back of his head, as well as abrasions to his forehead and an abrasion between his nose and his lips. Now, the key thing is there was no soot or stippling on the gunshot wound, meaning that the barrel of the gun was not close to Mashron's head in this incident. And with that being a fact, the bullet did enter the back of his head, and there was no exit wound, with the medium caliber projectile being found in the right frontal lobe, still lodged in Mashran's head. Now, this incident, when we spoke on it, we spoke about the area it's in. 96th and Van Ness. Now, this is far from his hood. I don't know where he lived, but we will get into some indicators in terms of the tattoos that he had. But 96th and Van Ness, this is the borderline of neighborhood rolling 90s and the Inglewood families. Now, the 9-0s, as some may know, are a part of the rolling car with the rolling 30s. So those two hoods are gonna be allied. So starting off with the location is not necessarily alarming that he was over here in an alley on the night of May 23rd, 2025. But this is a very active area in LA, and the 9-0s are involved in a lot of beef, especially near Van Ness and Century, which is one block down past Cimarron from where this incident took place with kingBoy. That area, hard time hustlers are right there. The 9-0s have had problems with them, even though they're a part of the Rolling Hundreds, which is also a neighborhood 9-0 ally. The Avenue Pyrus are there. Not a large hood, you know, they still have some presence, but regardless of size of the hood, man, at any given time, even if a hood got 10 people in it, it only takes one individual to get cracking, man. So that's what we also got to point out. These hoods still do have members in them. Hoods like Avenue Pyru are still active. Now, again, next, somebody else that shares that intersection is Inglewood family. But west of here is one of 9-0's main enemies, A-Tray gangsters. So we know it's a lot going on in this area, but the specific situation with the 30s and the A-Trays is kind of tricky. You know, me growing up watching the 30s and the A-Trays, that situation always seemed to be like an on and off again type thing. You know, the 30s we know are not neighborhood Crips, but over the years, they've seemingly got a lot closer to the neighborhoods, especially since they stopped beefing with the 40s. And there is underlying tension with the A-Trays, and there was all the way back to about 2005 when I first seen tension between the 30s and the A-Trays based on political stances. But a key detail in this case is that Mashran was in this alley with 6 other individuals. Now, when we reported on this situation, there was a lot going on around it, not only this incident, but the day after. And it left a lot of speculation on the board because there seemed to be retaliatory shootings, not only in the same night, but again, also in the day after in rival hoods of the 30s and the 9-0s. So this is where the report kind of brings clarity into the situation. And I'll say just a bit of clarity and we'll break down why it's only a small bit. But with Mashran being in the alley over here with 6 other individuals, these was all his homies he was with. I can't say if these dudes was from 30s. I'm pretty sure there's a mix of allied hoods. You know, with him being from 30s and the 9-0s, he's not from 9-0. So there's going to be multiple different hoods kicking it with each other. But what they was doing in this alley was breaking into cars. And in the investigative narrative, as well as a witness statement, at about 11:32, 2 of the individuals in the group that Mashran was in break into a car in the alley over here off 96 and Van Ness. Now, it said these dudes go through the car, get out the car, and at this time, the owner of the vehicle comes out and is yelling at these dudes, has words. I don't know if he fully approached them. Whatever it was, he's seen them breaking into their car, and it's a problem. Now, it said that the group was about 20 yards away from the owner of the vehicle, who had previously spotted them on surveillance camera in his car, when the individual from the group pulls out a gun and starts firing. This is when Mashran kingBoy Montgomery is struck in the back of the head by friendly fire in the alley over here off 96th and Van Ness, the night of May 23rd, 2025. Now, after this, everybody runs, leaves Mashran in the alley, and police recover 3 9mm shell casings at the scene. And as we see police and paramedics arrive to the scene, seemingly are starting to administer life-saving procedures, but eventually they take Mashran down to Harbor UCLA, which is a common hospital for everything in South Central, but it's not close, especially to this situation. But when they get there, this is when they notice, not only does he have the gunshot wound to the back of his head, again, he also has an abrasion to his forehead and to his lip, in between his nose and his lip. Now, the abrasions on the front side of his head seemingly are from him being shot in the back of the head and falling on his face during the incident. And he's pronounced dead at Harbor UCLA. Now, Mashron wasn't a big individual to begin with, standing at 5'5", 137 pounds. Again, this is a young man, 19 years old, and seemingly outdoing what young kids do. Breaking into a car, of course, unacceptable. At 19 years old, as a parent, come on. But we've all been there. We've all been into something at 18, 19, even 30, you know what I'm saying? But especially when you're a young dude, you got 6 friends with you, it's time to show out. Y'all acting crazy, going crazy, Like I said, we talk about a lot of gangsters and gang members and these murders on the channel, but sometimes we don't stress some of these dudes are kids. 19 years old, you still a kid. Of course, right from wrong is one thing, but if y'all can put yourselves in the shoes of a 19-year-old who's hanging out with their friends on a Friday, Saturday night, walking around, you may be going back to your friend's house, smoking a little bit of weed, waiting to get back on the game or something, looking for some money, whatever it is. 6 boys in a group, there's some horse playing that's gonna go on. It's sad that he lost his life this way with his friends. It seemingly was an accident. Now, the tattoos that the medical examiner found on his body are ones that depict the lifestyle of Rolling 30 Harlem Crip. So on the side of his face, he had kingBoy, which if you're not familiar with, is Crip in Swahili. So he got an eye buster on his face. Young dude, again, this is still an active member. Across his neck, big letters, 3916. Now the 39, I'm pretty sure that's an address over there by 39th Street. I'm not gonna say the cross street, but that may be an address of a spot he grew up in, or the 16 may have some other significance, but we know 39 is the main most active block in the Harlems. 39th and LaSalle, 39th and Dinker, 39th and Dalton. These are gonna be some very hot blocks, and this is what he had tattooed on his neck. So again, active member out here in this situation. Now, the thing that threw a wrench and kind of a cloud over this situation was what transpired the day after. So we spoke about that, where again, these are just allegations. The Rolling Hundreds seemingly participated in a retaliatory shooting, which resulted in a double homicide in the A-Trays. Now, this was by Florence and Dalton, and the individual named Stein from UG was involved allegedly. He did get arrested at the scene of the crime shortly after the crime, but we still have to say these are allegations, and he's innocent until proven guilty. Everybody is. But what we seen with Stein seemingly had a good relationship with kingBoy. We have multiple pictures of Stein being with kingBoy. So when this happened, the streets, of course, it was 6, 7 people in that alley. Everybody's not there. We have to sometimes wait until the news passes through the streets for us to know exactly what's going on. But the initial take was that Stein and these dudes, again, performed a retaliatory double homicide due to the death of kingBoy over here on 96th and Van Ness. Now, the A-Trays not only beef with Stein's Hood, the UGs, but again, like I said, they beef with the 9-0s, and sometimes it can be a tricky situation with the Harlems. But to give y'all an insight as to how tricky this street shit can be, now, I'm clearly stating, I cannot say that this is what happened, but this is something that is on the list of things that can happen. In a situation like this where you get killed by your homie on accident, your homies can go slide for you immediately after the situation to kind of cover the situation up. Nobody wants to just say, hey, yeah, we killed the homie. Or it could be some lying, because the number one thing people ask and people pay attention to when somebody gets killed is, where was y'all at and who was you with? So when they say, okay, we was on Van Ness at 96, this could be a G homie like, hey, what was y'all doing over there with kingBoy? What happened? You never know if you got some stand-up people around you. Again, I'm just painting a scenario because I do find it strange that the next day, Stein and these dudes went to the A-Trays when in the police report, it said this is a case of friendly fire. Was it a cover-up that they were trying to perform with this double homicide in the A-Trays, was saying the A-Trays did it, we got to go over there and slide, because nobody wanted to take accountability for the murder of kingBoy, as it being this is his homeboy. I can't say, but that's some shit that would happen. Somebody saying, where was y'all at? Who was you with? We was with Wooty Woo, Wooty Woo, Wooty Woo, and some niggas came and got cracking. Now, the person asking them questions who wasn't there is not gonna know. So if they spin off and say, hey, the A-Trays did it, they finna put word out in the hood like, hey, the A-Trays just smoked the hump, we going up over this. Or if they said the Inglewood families did it, it could have been anything. But that's how beefs stay alive. And again, who's gonna sit there and say, oh yeah, the homie killed him? What? You know, things get very tricky in the streets. And sometimes we'll never know the true motives behind certain situations. But with the toxicology report of kingBoy, he also has some lean in his system. Now, we know the lean, these prescription pills, that's the most popular shit out there. Not alarming, but if they were sipping some lean that night, you know, this could have been a factor of how mistakes was made, you know? Now, the scan of the gunshot wound did show not only a fracture in the skull, but also a swelling of the right frontal lobe. And again, with the bullet still being lodged, the survival rate of this extremely low, regardless of the gunfire range. Now, it's noted here, the medical examiner said this wound is considered a rapidly fatal wound due to blunt force trauma. Of course, there's a loss of brain fluid, hemorrhaging, and severe internal bleeding of a gunshot wound. Now, also as a result of him hitting the floor with this, there were other abrasions to his elbows and his hands. You know, the details of a homicide is very extensive. And this is what we wanted to show with this series with you guys. It's much more than what we usually talk about in our normal videos. And this is somewhat the final moments of this individual, kingBoy, over here in the 9-0s. But overall, if you enjoyed this type of video, let us know in the comments, hit the like button, give us a feedback. This is our first time doing a video like this. We'll definitely improve on bringing y'all as much information as possible. As you can see, these reports are thorough and extensive, but we're trying to bring this information to you the best way possible, the most professional way. And we have to say, rest in peace to Mashron Brown in Montgomery, 19-year-old, somebody who I would say is a kid. 19-year-old kid, life full ahead of him, regardless of his lifestyle. Like I said, everybody's not a gang member 24/7. This is not somebody serving a life sentence in prison. This is a tragedy. But this is just for the members. Everybody that is even considered signing up for our paid service, that's something that we cannot take for granted. And we
Great video by Rap News Street Politics. Go check them out. Check them out if you haven't yet. Great content. So basically what he was saying was kingBoy was hanging out with a few of his homies and shit. Fuck around and get into it with somebody. Get into a shootout. Accidentally kill their homie. Accidentally kill kingBoy. The next day they go to the A-trays and pull off a slide. What? 3 members? One of them is 12. My personal opinions about that. A reason they could have slid to the A-trays, I don't have no personal information. This is just my opinion, just off of what I just looking at. Maybe they went to the A-trays because the person that was shooting at could have been banging A-trays, or the person they got to that shootout with could have been from A-trays. Another nigga could have pulled up and banged A-tray on them, and they got him to a shootout. You never know what happened to push them to slide that way. No, it's LA shit. So much different shit be popping up. So that's what I'm feeling like right there. And then, shit, they took the 12-year on the slide. You want Cali you from here with the law, you should know how this shit work. If they do it right. If they do it right, shit, know you know it. They should have some accent. She coming home and shit. But yeah, that's one video of Rap 3 News doing reactions. Shout out to its content. Great content. Go look at it. But yeah, but like the owner could have been from A-trays and that could have pushed him that way, or somebody from A-tray could have pulled up and they got into it. But the police report says that it was friendly fire that killed them. So yeah, they could have accidentally killed their homie shooting at somebody else. And they left him when he died, and see, you know, that's always cold, but it's the streets. They probably panicked, didn't know what to do. RIP to kingBoy.